We've got to the end of day 8 of the Undercover Policing Inquiry Tranche 3 Phase 1. We've been hearing the more of the live evidence from L3, who was a hunt saboteur from Croydon Hunt Saboteurs. Was targeted by the undercover officer James Thomson. I'm joined with Donal Driscoll from the Undercover Research Group and Patrick from Veggies. And rights activists themselves in their day. What have you made of what we heard from L3?
Really,
a lot closer than that.
really,
Like
really.
a lot closer. Like move your chair in. Like move your chair in. So apologies for the technical issues.
He was really good. He's calm, straightforward, answered the questions clearly. Wasn't phased. There was a bit at the end where there's a whole load of unexpected questions thrown in. It was a bit unfair, I thought, but he dealt with them great.
What do you think, Marshall?
In terms of process, I was intrigued to hear that he only actually got in touch with Inquiry a few weeks ago, and I suspect it's the case with so many people that it's only because there's recently a document produced about the effect on social centres like ourselves, and the and that kind of catch-22 that to be involved in the inquiry, you have to know that you were involved with Spycops, but you don't know that you're involved in Spycops unless you're involved in the inquiry. And it's only now that the evidence is coming out that there must be so many people out there that think, hang on, I was involved in that incident, or why are these allegations being made about an incident that I was involved in? As he said at the end, that the impact on his life of some of these false allegations, if they'd been pursued, it would have totally changed his entire life. And of course there are many people whose lives were changed by the false allegations made against them.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. It's the way in which, in order to know how you were affected, you need to be engaged, and in order to be engaged, you were expected to know that you were affected, which is a ridiculous situation. The big incident he's talking about is Operation Lime, this trip he took to France with James Thomson, which he understood to be a nice little holiday, supposedly because Thomson was going to have some sort of business meeting in Marseille, and he shoehorned in to go and get some nice wine from Bordeaux. And have a bit of a travel about. We got to see a lot of the itinerary from that. Everything from the rental car documents to photographs of the gun, which Thomson had planted inside the vehicle. What did you make of the detail of Operation Lime?
It's quite interesting that they have so much detail that the police, Operation Heron, and by an extension the inquiry, had a copy of all this material. They clearly kept it. They clearly thought it was very important. But like part of it's going through in detail, because this is what James Thomson in the next few days is going to have to try and explain away. Like, we know that his own managers had concerns about the operation. So this is all up in the air, and what we have here is a witness who was with James at the time, able to bring that moment to life. So I think it was, it's not necessarily compelling stuff to listen to, but it is really important in unpicking the accounts of the day. This is a really good grounding for what will come out in James Thomson's evidence.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, not necessarily that compelling. I mean, the levels of detail were quite off the scale, really. I mean, it was quite something that was quite endearing. L3 kind of commented, remembered sort of like engaging with a cat behind a shop window. We all sorts of little details.
The cat. He remembered the cat playing in the shop window really, really clearly. He wasn't able to. It was like. It was 25 years ago. Certain bits stood out, but were what was meaningful for him, not what was meaningful for, James Thomson.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, he referred to the whole thing as like the most incredible thing that ever happened to him that he was completely unaware of. And it's certainly, the impact of what happened on that trip could have had on his life is really immeasurable, quite frankly. I mean, he could have ended up in prison for the last 25 years.
And I think he was processing that. He said at the end, like, this is something. It's only really learning this in the last month, and the size of this, it was through listening to the inquiry he recognised, because nobody could tell him. And this goes to the point what Pat was making earlier, but also some of the questions that have been thrown at the end, or why didn't you come forward sooner? It's like, he didn't know. He just, this was just an acquaintance. And suddenly it's like, this acquaintance was pulling a massive trick behind his back. The implications are that he was involved in a conspiracy to bring a gun across the border to the UK to murder. That's on police records. James Thomson put that on his record. It's going to be have sat there all these years. Nobody knows what that sort of implication has. That's a massive consequence for James Thomson to answer.
Yeah, absolutely. As well as Operation Lime, we had a lot of other things that he was questioned about the sort of a lot about what was supposedly led to Operation Lime, the attempted murder of who we know from the inquiry as L4, the Hunt Sab, who was repeatedly run over by a Hunt supporter. In September 2000, we heard about the fact that the protest the next day at the Alburstow and Surrey kennels, which James Thomson didn't appear at, and it was pointed out how this was really kind of a big sort of black mark against any sort of credibility he may have had within the group of not turning up to that. People came from far and wide. For some reason, Thomson didn't. It was also, it was a point where L3 kind of broke down. He got very emotional, where he talked about how Thomson ended up being the one who went to Jakarta to visit L4 after the person who tried to kill him, the case against him kind of collapsed or failed. And he was like, you could tell the guilt in his voice, really, that he felt that he should have gone. It shouldn't have been that it was left to Thomson to go and do that trip. Obviously, Thomson was very keen to do it, and we didn't hear much detail about why it was that it ended up being him, but someone had to go, and Thomson ended up being the one. He rejected the idea that Thomson had been persuaded in some way. I'm sure he'd been more than keen.
And I think one of the things that Thomson's trying to say is how angry and out for revenge and violence they all are. And what L3 said was, it was the opposite. It was deflated. This was potentially the third Hunt Sab to be killed. It's quite a significant moment. I remember the time. It was just like there was just a state of shock, and so Thomson is trying to take this really dark moment in protest where somebody's almost died, and he's trying to manipulate it to his own ends. Partly because he was probably pointing out, naming all the people who got arrested. That was his role.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were 36 arrested at that protest at the kennels the next day. Like you say, I'm sure Thomson had a role to play in that. The fact that he didn't go to that protest, and the fact that the report that he files the same day that L4 is run over, someone who he befriended and known for a number of years, and clearly has no empathy for whatsoever, and is immediately pivots within the report, so going, they're planning revenge, suggests a real sort of psychopathy on his part.
Immediately after the incident, it was right throughout the Animal Rights grapevine, and people could travel from all over. So for someone who's supposedly so close, not to have gone, I wonder whether there was mention in the report there that the 36 were identified from CCTV and that kind of stuff. But I guess, is it the case that most people would have been identified because of the Spycop being there, and not being there, but recognising all the people and identifying them?
I mean, certainly when it came to the home visits on the 6th of September, there is sort of CCTV footage of the meeting point, which it's wondered if maybe the reason why that CCTV footage which was turned on. I mean, back in the day, I mean, this says a lot about technology. Back in the day, CCTV footage would only kind of change it once every kind of 10 seconds or once every minute. It was switched onto a live feed just before they met there, as we understand it, and that kind of really, was that the role of Thomson in that is his fingerprints are all over that, really, it would suggest, wouldn't it? I mean, his we heard a lot of there was very robust, I felt, from L3 sort of rejection of the characterization of the people he was spying on as being intimidating characters who were involved. He kind of claimed that he'd infiltrated the Hunt Sabs in order to penetrate an ALF cell, and he claimed that L1, L2 and L3 were all members of an ALF cell. And L3 really kind of rejects that. He points out that if he'd wanted to be involved in ALF cell, the last thing he'd been doing was doing very open, very public animal rights campaigning as a Hunt Sab, involved in the Shamrock Farm campaign, Shamrock Farm being the primate breeding facility for animal experimentation. The campaigning that he was doing was very public. It was legal. I mean, he admitted to some illegal activity. I mean, fairly minor stuff. We're talking about damaging badger traps and so forth. But yeah, I thought that came across very strongly. He particularly pointed out that there was a rise in sort of ALF actions during that time period, which Thomson had no intelligence on, he had no knowledge of, because he was looking in the wrong place.
In fact, he points out that as already been noticed, that Thomson was doing barely any reports. It was like, what was he actually doing except having a nice taxpayer-funded lifestyle? Like these trips. Who was paying for all of that? That trip to Marseille, paid for by the police. The trip to India, paid for by the police. Are you saying that he really did that out of his own pocket, out of the goodness of his heart? Don't think so. So yeah, there's a lot of questions, even just about expenses on this, and. Question is, why did this undercover officer have a gun sat somewhere in Marseille? Because that's clearly the reason they went to Marseille.
Yeah. The whole thing about the gun and the cost. It was claimed that L3 had spent £700 to get this gun. And he was like, 25 years ago, if I had £700, I thought I'd won the lottery. It's quite telling, actually. There's £700 amount. This is supposedly the amount that was given to Barry Horn as well. I wonder if this is the sort of the figure that's like kind of the maximum in the discretionary kitty fund that undercover cops can swipe in order to use in such a way. I don't know. But yeah, anything else you'd like to say about L3 before we get on to Thomson for tomorrow?
No, just, He came up at very short notice, turned the statement around very short notice, and then gave us sterling response. I think given the pressures he must clearly have been on over the last few weeks, that's quite something.
Yeah, it was a very eloquent, articulate, very clear set of questions. He set of answers he gave. Was more articulate than me, obviously, as I followed my words. I think he did particularly well. I think he communicated very clearly to the chair of the ridiculousness of what Thomson is alleging. We'll be hearing from Thomson tomorrow.
Maybe. I think everyone should be watching the next couple of days, live on YouTube, reports by your good self in every break and every moment of opportunity. You'll be giving people the live updates, so let's all follow it with interest.
Yeah, we won't be able to watch on YouTube, unfortunately. It'll just be the audio. But please, I really recommend people do tune in. It is quite something that James Thomson has managed to get his face off the feed. We'll be able to see him in person. He will be giving evidence for 5 days. It's both tomorrow and Thursday, and he'll be back again next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So if you are able to come along to the hearings, I'd recommend you try. You should have booked, but there's so much space here. There's plenty of space.
I just stroll straight in, not a problem at all. I'll just give a shout out. If anyone's in Nottingham, they can come and follow the live coverage at the Sumac Centre in Nottingham, where we're kind of doing everything we can to follow the inquiry in depth as well.
There's a lot to look forward to. There's so much we've heard over the last few weeks that really blows holes all through everything that James Thomson has said. It's like there's so many layers of lies he's given. We've seen the lies that he said when he was in the field to the activists he was spying on, the lies he told his managers when he was in the field, the lies he gave to Hearn, the lies he initially told the inquiry, the new lies he's told the inquiry. When it all strips away, I'm like remembering what we heard from Lisa Crossland this morning. It's like I do hope he does tell the truth for once, because it'll do him the world of good.
Yeah, get rid of the fantasy, mate. Like there's a lot. So many of these undercover officers think, oh my god, this is the worst, and then there's another worse. And it's like a lot of the other ones, like Rayner and Cole, psychopaths. This guy's he's the exemplary of the undercover as a fantasist.
Yeah, and it's been Yeah, you kind of wonder. I mean, if he was to start telling the truth, his whole world might collapse.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, we're back again at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. We're doing these videos in the breaks. Please join us then. I'll be doing a Twitter Spaces this evening, and I'm trying to share these short videos that sort of recap the day. I did 2 yesterday because there was 2 different witnesses. I'll do 2 again this evening. They end up going out quite late, which I think kind of affects how many people see them. If you do see them, if you are able to share them, it'll be really useful. They kind of sort of sum up what was said by each witness, and I think they're the kind of most effective way to like kind of get across what happens at the inquiry. Anything else if you want to add?
That's all good. Thanks so much.
All right. See you tomorrow. Cheers for now.